We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Like some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. I mean, some of them I know who they are, but they're very, very conservative, just like you have. They're sort of the opposite of the radical left, okay? You have the radical left and you have the radical right, and they come up with this, I don't know what the hell it is, it's Project 25. He's involved in Project, and then they read some of the things, and they are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. But what they do is misinformation and disinformation, and they keep saying, he's a threat to democracy. I'm saying, what the hell did I do for democracy? Because our country is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does such an incredible job at that. This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Despite Donald Trump's denials that he knows who these people are, he is deeply connected to key authors of Project 2025, which include Paul Dans, Roger Severino, Ken Cuccinelli, Christopher Miller, and Russ Vought. All of these people served in Trump's administration and are considered serious contenders for top positions in any second Trump term if he were to win office.
The director of Project 2025 has stepped down after facing criticism from both Democrats and the Trump campaign. Paul Dans helmed the right-wing policy blueprint and personnel project, which was backed by the conservative Heritage Foundation. And if it was enacted, it would dramatically reshape how the federal government operates. At least 140 former Trump administration officials contributed to this project, and many of its proposals overlap with Trump's plans for a second term.
If you're following politics in America, you might have come across people talking about Project 2025, but few seem to be aware of what this political movement is and why they should be extremely concerned about the momentum it's building. This video is based on a series of articles I wrote over on my website, Politically Inclined. If you'd like a more in-depth look into Project 2025, I'll leave a link to the series and the free ebook download in the description and pinned comment. So what is Project 2025? Who created it? What are their aims? Why is this a really, really bad thing for America? And what will its impact on other countries be? Let's take a look. What is Project 2025?
The Heritage Foundation has provided the leadership to shape the vision of a better America, where the principles our founding fathers sacrificed to provide are nurtured and understood.
Project 2025 is a 900-page manifesto created and funded by the Heritage Foundation, who brought together over 400 people from various fields to come up with the policy ideas that are laid out in their book, A Mandate for Leadership. The Heritage Foundation was formed in 1973 and rose to prominence and power during Ronald Reagan's presidency in the 1980s, where they provided his administration with over 2,000 policy suggestions, managing to get 60% of them implemented. Quite an impressive feat, I'm sure you'll agree. A lot of the policies they provided were aimed at reducing the size and therefore overreach of the government, developing programs to assist other countries enact anti-communist laws, and promoting other conservative ideology. Interestingly, the Heritage Foundation did not initially embrace Trump after he started to campaign for the Republican presidential nomination in 2015. Heritage Action, a sister organization to the foundation, was quite vocal in their anti-Trump stance, with their leader Michael Needham calling Trump a clown during one interview.
Possible to defend. John McCain's a war hero. His book, Faith of My Fathers, is an inspiration to read. And Donald Trump's a clown. The reason people are attracted to Donald Trump isn't that they agree with what he believes in. This is a guy who believes in socialized medicine. This is a guy who, in past life, supported amnesty. This is a guy who said that he's very pro-choice. People agree with Donald Trump for the same reason Bernie Sanders is getting a following, which is that people are incredibly cynical about the Washington political class. And they look at the same political consultants who have made the Republican Party soulless, who have made the Republican Party intellectually bankrupt, and they say, if those guys are setting their hair on fire, Trump might be doing something right. He's not doing something right. He needs to be out of the race. But somebody else who's serious needs to step up and start channeling the voice of very frustrated American political voters.
After Trump won the nomination, though, their thinking changed, and they sought to influence both the president-to-be and his administration by getting Heritage's own people put into positions of power. Trump ran on a platform of draining the swamp, blaming the deep state for a variety of problems, and railing against cultural Marxism, which struck a deep chord with a large number of conservative Republicans.
We're going to Washington, D.C., and we are going to drain the swamp.
Seeing how popular this rhetoric was, the Heritage Foundation embraced these ideologies with open arms. This change in view, taking these Trumpist dog whistles as their own policies, instead of having Trump accept their own policy recommendations, has led the Heritage Foundation to create Project 2025, which is firmly based on Trump's rhetoric and panders to his MAGA base, as well as the more conservative Christian voters in America. What are Project 2025's aims? Project 2025's manifesto is built on what they call 4 pillars. Let's break each one down briefly. Pillar 1. Policy. This pillar looks at how the government and its federal agencies are run and provides a framework for overhauling them so that they operate using Project 2025's mandates. The policy pillar is complete and is presented in the book The Mandate for Leadership. Pillar 2. Personnel. Project 2025 has created a database of people who can be parachuted into agencies to replace existing staff. These personnel are fully versed in Project 2025 ideology and will be used to further the Project 2025 agenda from within the government itself. Pillar 3. Preparation. In order to have people ready to be placed into governmental positions and have them knowledgeable in the roles they will be doing and what Project 2025's goals are, the Heritage Foundation have created a Presidential Administration Academy. This is an online portal to teach people the functions of various government departments and roles so they can be added to the personnel database and placed in positions as needed when Trump begins his cull of existing staff. Pillar 4. The Playbook. This stage consists of proactively forming teams and transition plans so that they are ready to move the moment that Trump is sworn in. This will mean they can begin removal and replacement of staff on day 1 of a Trump presidency, and their preparation would mean they are able to complete all their plans within 180 days of the new Republican president taking office. What would Project 2025 do to America? Project 2025 has some wide-reaching aims for a variety of government departments and areas of American life. I don't have time to cover them all here, so let's just look at the main points. The Department of Justice. Here's a direct quote from the Mandate for Leadership regarding the Department of Justice. When a new president takes office, he will need to decide expeditiously how to handle any major ongoing litigation or other pending legal matters that might present a challenge to his agenda. With Trump undergoing multiple legal proceedings, the inclusion of this statement is very telling, don't you think? Basically, Project 2025 would work to remove any legal roadblocks that face the president by being able to stop any ongoing FBI investigations and may even be able to use legislation to throw out any pending legal cases.
As we completely overhaul the Federal Department of Justice and FBI, we will also launch sweeping civil rights investigations into Marxist local district attorneys. And that's what we have. They're Marxists in many cases.
They would also stop the FBI being run as an independent agency, moving it under the control of the Attorney General, who is appointed by the President. They would then move the FBI's focus and stop them investigating misinformation, like alleged rigged elections claims. I wonder why that would be.
First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the President's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible.
Gutting the civil service. Project 2025 claims that government is too big and as a result has too much overreach and interferes too much in people's lives. To counter this, they plan to slash the number of people working in the civil service. On the surface, this might sound like a fair proposal, as less staff equals less wages. And less wages means less taxpayer money needed. The problem is they intend to remove people from independent agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration or the Environmental Protection Agency.
One of the proposals has a lot of scientists very worried. It would eliminate the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. That's the agency that tracks storms, including tornadoes here, snowstorms, and hurricanes. The proposal seeks to eliminate NOAA because it is, quote, one of the main drivers of the climate alarm industry. That's a direct quote from the report. That backtracking on climate change has worried not just Democrats, but many Republicans too.
They claim that, as these agencies are run by experts and not by politicians, they are free to act on their own ideology and may work against presidential policies.
Next, I will bring the independent regulatory agencies such as the FCC and the FTC back under presidential authority as the Constitution demands. These agencies do not get to become a fourth branch of government, issuing rules and edicts all by themselves, and that's what they've been doing. I will require that they submit any regulations they are considering for White House review.
A reduction in these experts would mean that environmental protections are rolled back. Food would become less safe, and regulations would be placed in the hands of people with no experience of the subject and who may have an agenda thanks to lobbying or donations.
I will deploy a team of warrior lawyers to hunt down every unnecessary regulation in the Federal Registry that hampers domestic production, and we will wipe them off the books.
An end to education. Project 2025 plans to completely dismantle the Department of Education. They would remove funding at a federal level, meaning that states would be solely responsible for funding their schools and determining how and where that money is spent. They also aim to allow parents access to their child's education savings account, or ESA, so the funds can be spent where the parent wants.
So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education.
This means instead of having to pay for private schooling out of pocket, a parent would be able to use funds from their ESA to pay towards the cost. Again, this may seem like a good idea in theory, however, this means that money is being pulled out of an already underfunded state school system, which would reduce the money they receive even further. Project 2025 would also ban any teaching that refers to race, sex, or gender, meaning that already marginalized students will face even more difficulties. They would also remove the right of a student to be allowed to use preferred pronouns or name without parental consent, although a teacher would be able to ignore a student's pronouns if they want to without any legal repercussions.
Rather than indoctrinating young people with inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material, which is what we're doing now. Our schools must be totally refocused to prepare our children to succeed in the world of work and in life and the world of keeping our country strong. And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it.
Reduced access to health care. Not only would Project 2025's policies remove nearly all access to abortion care, they would also remove federal funding from Planned Parenthood. They would also move people off of Medicaid, an affordable option for people who do not have employment-provided health insurance, and enroll them into the more expensive Medicare Advantage program. This would mean that not only would people be paying more in order to access health care, people with pre-existing conditions would find it more difficult, if not impossible, to get adequate health insurance coverage. No separation of church and state. Project 2025 aims to bring traditional Christian values back to American life. They will do this by legislating things like mandatory Sabbath days and increase the ability of religious groups to manage schemes such as apprenticeships, while allowing these groups to refuse people access to these schemes based on religious grounds. They will also target marriage, saying that the new president should maintain a biblically based, social science-reinforced definition of marriage and family. This would basically mean that anyone in a same-sex marriage would have certain rights taken away from them, such as tax breaks and even access to adoption. Absolute authority. Perhaps the most worrying policy of Project 2025 would be the implementation of the unitary executive theory. Essentially, unitary executive theory is a constitutional school of thought that gives the president ultimate power over the executive branch without interference from other parts of the government, such as the judiciary.
I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's not retribution.
I'm gonna be, you know, he keeps, we love this guy. He says, you're not gonna be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
While unitary executive theory has been used in the past, George W. Bush used the theory to bring in a raft of laws after 9/11, for example. A Trump government would take things to a whole new level. While the president can pick people for certain positions within the government, such as agency directors, think CIA, FBI, NSA, or the Attorney General, etc., these people can't actually take up the role until they are confirmed by Congress. Under unitary executive theory, the president bypasses the need for congressional approval and so would be able to put anyone into any position with no real scrutiny. While you could argue this would allow the president to appoint people who completely align with their values and policies, it also means that wholly unsuitable people could be put into positions of power they have no business being in, and there is no one who can speak up against it or stop them. What would Project 2025 do to the rest of the world? Project 2025 operates very much on an America First basis. While this may have worked 30 or 40 years ago, in this global age, it feels like a very short-sighted plan. Pulling out of NATO could have far-reaching consequences for the whole of Europe, if not the world. And enacting far-right policies into law would certainly have a ripple effect on a global scale. With Trump normalizing and accepting far-right rhetoric over his 4 years in power, we have seen a rise in far-right conservatism across the world. This is most notable in Europe, with France's Marine Le Pen's national rally gaining a record number of seats.
Now, exit polls from the first round of France's parliamentary elections suggest the far right have made historic gains. Turnout was the highest for 40 years. Marine Le Pen's far-right National Party came top with more than a third of the vote.
Giorgia Meloni of Italy became the first far-right prime minister of a country since the Second World War, and Hungary's Viktor Orbán is becoming more and more authoritarian the longer he is in power. Here in the UK, we have seen Trump-like rhetoric slipping into everyday use by our politicians.
It's the Labour Party, it's the Lib Dems, it's the coalition of chaos, it's the Guardian reading, tofu eating, wokerati, dare I say, the anti-growth coalition that we have to thank.
And there are even breakaway political groups like Popular Conservatism, backed by loser-to-a-lettuce Liz Truss, which has started to promote very Project 2025 adjacent policies. Truss even appeared at CPAC, although it was to quite a small audience. What happens in America quite often makes its way to other countries as the accepted way of doing things. So while you might not physically be in America and directly governed by the policies outlined in Project 2025, it can and will have an effect on you at some point as other countries look to the United States for policy direction. What can you do about it? If you're in America, make sure you're registered to vote. If you're already registered, check your voter registration status. Many states have been enacting laws that allow them to remove people from voter rolls without their knowledge, so check you're still on the list and keep checking. If you're outside America, share videos like this one. There's a growing movement on TikTok and Instagram covering this subject, so there's plenty of content to choose from, so you'll be able to pick something in a style that suits your followers. Post on social media calling out the hypocrisy of Trump and Project 2025's aims. If you have people considering voting for a far-right or right-leaning candidate, talk to them about what that would mean to you and your friends. Tell them about the impact these people and their ideologies will have on hard-won freedoms such as civil liberty, the right to protest, marriage rights, gay rights and access to things we all take for granted like healthcare, state pensions and even education. And make sure you're registered to vote in your own country too. If the worst happens in November 2024, international pressure may go a long way to stopping some of the harm that Project 2025 might cause. What do you think? Are you concerned about Project 2025, or do you think this is a big fuss over nothing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're interested in politics and the occasional funny video, please subscribe and turn on the bell to get notified when I upload. Thank you for watching. I hope you have found this video useful, and if you have, please consider giving it a like. You can also support me on Buy Me a Coffee to help me to continue researching and making more videos like this one. I'll see you again soon.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no, other than day one."